Well, the trial goes on today. There was a significant moment in the trial of George Zimmerman, who was charged, of course, with second-degree murder and the killing of Florida teenager Trayvon Martin. Martin's friend Rachel Gentle took the stand today as a witness for the prosecution. She was on the phone with Martin the night he was killed. Here she is today speaking about that phone call.
He said, "Why are you following me for?" And then I heard a hard breath man come and say, "What you doing around here?" Then I started saying, Trayvon, what's going on? Then I heard a bump, and I had to feel it was a bump because the headset, Trayvon had a headset. And then I was calling Trayvon, and then I started hearing a little bit of Trayvon saying, "Get off, get off."
Wow. Well, we turn down MSNBC's Craig Melvin, who's been following the case in Sanford, Florida, and MSNBC legal analyst Lisa Bloom. Craig, tell me about this case today. What happened today of significance to the prosecution case?
Chris, that clip that you just played there was very significant. In fact, that's where they left off about 15 minutes ago. The defense attorney was trying to show that there was an inconsistency between what Rachel Gentle said in her deposition and what she said in court. In her deposition, according to the defense attorney, in her deposition she said it could be Trayvon, and today on the stand at one point she said it was certainly Trayvon. So that's where we left off today. We also left off after about an hour and a half. Yeah, she started about 2:30. The prosecution spent about an hour with her. Then the defense spent about an hour 45 minutes, including breaks. And then at the end, when asked how much additional time they would need tomorrow with the 19-year-old, Don West said, "Oh, a few hours, a couple of hours." And at that point, Rachel Gentle was visibly disgusted. She was visibly disgusted at a number of different points throughout her testimony. I talked to her attorney earlier today, a Miami-based lawyer who identified himself as her attorney, and he said that she would be a reluctant witness, and a reluctant witness she was. There were a number of exchanges between her and the defense attorney when you could tell that she was not happy about being here. At one point, she asked him, "Are you listening? Are you listening to me?" Over and over again. And there were a couple of other pointed exchanges as well. There were two other things of note, Chris. One thing they were prepared for, according to her defense attorney, and that was the lie that she told about going to the hospital instead of going to the funeral for Trayvon Martin, instead of going to his wake. She said that she told that lie because she did not want to upset Sabrina Fulton, Trayvon Martin's mother. She didn't want to upset the Martin family, so she came up with this lie about going to the hospital so she wouldn't make herself necessarily look bad and make them feel bad as well. That was one thing. That's what they were prepared for. The other thing that the attorney did not mention, to me at least, was this idea that she lied about her age to protect her privacy. At one point, she admitted today in court that she said she was 16 when in fact she's 18. She was 18 then. Now she's 19.
Okay, thanks, Craig. We're going to keep up with this as we can. We're going to bring in now Lisa Bloom. When I'm looking at the case, that's a simple question. How do you prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he committed murder, second-degree murder?
So
how do you go about doing this?
It all boils down to this. At the moment that George Zimmerman pulled that trigger, was he reasonably in fear of great bodily injury or death? The prosecution has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he was not in fear, that he did not act in self-defense. And to get a second-degree murder conviction, they have to get the jury to say that he acted with a depraved heart, with reckless indifference to human life.
You mean he just went out to shoot the guy?
Well, that's right. And that's why they bring in the earlier call where he says, you know, these guys always get away with it. He uses some profanity in reference to Trayvon Martin to show some animus, some mental state that he got to get it.
How do we get the truth of that question when we only have one person living?
Well, that happens in every murder case, right? There's almost always the case where one person's deceased. So it's a circumstantial case. And that's what the prosecution's doing now is bringing in witnesses who can disprove little pieces of George Zimmerman's statement because he cooperated with police. He gave a lengthy videotaped story of what happened that night immediately, the following day.
He had no fear he had no attempt to hide or to run. He just showed up. And how do you interpret that? Right.
And that's to his credit. That's definitely a point for the defense, that he immediately cooperated with the police. As soon as they came, he said, "I shot him.
What about the thing I hear from a lot of friends of mine and say, yeah, but he was told not to pursue him? Is there any evidence that he did pursue on foot? We don't know exactly which direction he went. We know he got out of his car.
Well, his defense attorney has now said in opening statement, yes, he did follow him. We heard from the dispatcher who said, we don't need you to do that. Very careful language with regard. He said, I can't give specific instructions not to do it. But you know what? It's not illegal to ignore a police dispatcher.
I agree with that.
If he had stated a safe distance, you know, maybe this wouldn't have happened.
Well, I hope we get the truth.
I hope so, too. It's all about what the evidence shows.
You get the truth, then you get the justice. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Craig Melvin, thank you for your reporting, and thank you, Lisa Bloom, for the analysis. Up next, Darrell Issa. Well, talk about not telling the truth. Now he wants us to believe he never said the White House was behind the IRS targeting of conservative groups. Never said that. How come there's a whole chorus of Republicans who have been following him and imitating him and saying, oh, yeah, there's an enemies list at the White House and all that nonsense, that malarkey, as Joe Biden would say. This so-called scandal he spent weeks hyping has turned out to go up in smoke. There is no scandal. The White House had nothing to do with this. Even he says there was no political involvement. Even our ICE is now saying. You know what? This Nixon wannabe ain't making it. Anyway, you're watching Hardball, the place for politics.